Hey there, this is Teagarden with episode 46 of the Unveiled podcast. And I'm continuing to share with you lessons I learned from my very weird crisis summer with my in-laws. We had a lot of health crisis with them and had to move them into an assisted living and empty out their house and get it sold. And it was a very busy summer. And I found that the enemy likes to really kick us when we're down. So last week, I kind of thought things had calmed down, and yet my father-in-law went back in the hospital last week. I had this one day all to myself. My husband and son were out of town, and first thing in the morning, I get a call that my father-in-law is really sick, and I spent the day getting him into the hospital and taking care of that. But I did a lot better this time. I really guarded my mind, and I didn't let my thoughts run down that negative thought train track. But there was that one day this summer, I affectionately call it Anne's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Now, I love children's literature, and there's this book called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. And I just think that's a great title. So kind of adopted that for this one particular day. So it was one of those days. Wasn't, horrible like getting in a car accident. It was just one of those days. We've all had them. It started out okay. I had to drive about an hour to my in-laws' house to meet these people that were called junk haulers, and they were going to take everything that was left in the house after the estate sale away, and they were going to donate the good stuff and recycle what they could and only throw, a little bit in the trash. So I thought this was great. Well, like the afternoon the day before, I suddenly started wondering, do they want everything boxed up? Because when I talked to them on the phone, they hadn't mentioned that. So I called, oh yes, they want everything boxed up. Okay, so now I was in panic mode, and I did what I could that afternoon before, but I didn't get it done. So when I arrived the next morning, I was kind of already in panic mode, trying to stay ahead of them boxing things up. And I had brought my son with me, and he was not being helpful, which really irritated me on top of everything else. I did try to be cheery when the workmen arrived, but they just had this really gruffness to them. They weren't chatty. The truck was a lot smaller than I expected. I expected a big box truck, and instead it was just like an open dumpster on wheels, and not a tall dumpster, just very shallow. So that kind of like, oh, I don't think they're going to get everything in there. Then they were telling me there were extra charges for mattresses and electronics and paint, and no one had mentioned that on the phone. They gave me an estimate that was higher than I had expected. I said, is this an estimate or is this the final price? And they said, oh, as long as you don't add anything to what you want us to haul off, it's not going to go up or down. Okay, great. Of course, you can probably guess, later in the day when we needed another truck, they charged me for a whole nother truck. Now, I don't blame them for doing that. It's just that wasn't what I was expecting based on what they had said earlier. So I also was frustrated that they weren't handling the furniture very nicely. This was furniture I thought they were going to donate, and they were not wrapping it up. They were shoving it in and throwing stuff in with it. And so I generally wasn't happy with their service. Then I went to get lunch, and they messed up my order. And you know how it is, you're holding up the line, and it's really embarrassing. And I was already hot and sweaty and hungry. The junk haulers took like 2 hours for lunch, and I had told them I had some place that my son had to be later in the day, and he was almost late for his class. The air conditioning in my car was broken, and it literally was 97 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and I'd been running in and out of the house all day, so just sweaty, and the car had been sitting in the sun. Took my son to his class, and I sat in that hot car for the full hour of his class, and I was still frustrated from the day when they had finished packing up. They hadn't actually gotten everything after the 3 trucks, so I had that to deal with as well. Then my son and I had to drive an hour home without the air conditioning, and I started feeling really sick near home. Dropped off my son at church. I barely made it home. I was starting to get woozy. I kind of stumbled into the house, and I thought I was going to throw up, and I laid on the cold tile of the bathroom floor for like 30 minutes. And I was dehydrated and suffering from heat exhaustion because I don't really do well with the heat. It was just a bad day. Sorry if that was too much information. I had some really choice thoughts for a number of people going through my head while I was laying on that tile floor. The junk haulers, the lunch employee, my son, to name a few. I was like negative about everything by the end of the day. Just negative, grumpy, unhappy. I think later, by the time it was bedtime, I'd cooled down, I'd gotten some food, and I finally got with the Lord, and I felt him saying, Anne, you've got to guard your thoughts. You allowed the enemy to hijack your mind today, and you let him take your thoughts down this negative track, and you just spiraled down. And he used that word. You let him hijack your thoughts. And he reminded me of 1 Peter 5:8. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Ouch. Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, aka human beings, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Those people that I was dealing with during the day were not my enemy. Satan is my enemy. And I didn't have to let all those things make me crazy mad. So the next morning, I had a nice quiet time with the Lord, and I got my mind into the right place. And I said, today, Lord, I will guard my thoughts. 2 Corinthians 10:4-5 says, the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Okay, that was going to be my mandate for the day. Take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. So I needed to fight with spiritual weapons, and I needed to recognize problems as harassment from the enemy. Actually, earlier in the year, and then again at the beginning of the summer, God had warned me several times that the enemy is harassing me, and I needed to be alert and aware. Not to be afraid, no, just be alert and aware. He promised that he would protect me and that the enemy could only harass me. So I just needed to guard my mind against his tactics. And obviously, I had fallen for his bait on that terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. But I decided today, this following day, I would do better. So I had to leave kind of early in the morning to drive my car to the dealer, which is about 45 minutes away, to get the air conditioner fixed because we didn't want to go through that any longer. So I was driving along, I'm about halfway there, and the dash lights come on. All these lights, check engine, other things. What's going on? I don't think this has anything to do with the air conditioner. And it's pouring down rain, and I'm at a place where I can't really pull over. And so I'm like, okay, let me get in the right lane and figure out what's going on. And then all of a sudden that temperature gauge, it went from cold to hot, like whoop, all at once. So at that point, I pulled over into a parking lot. I called my husband, I called the dealer, told him I broke down, and then I had to regroup. Okay, what am I going to do? And I thought, first things first, I told the enemy, I see what you're doing and it's not going to work today. I am not taking the bait. Okay, I could have whined. I could have been like, why me? Why did all this bad stuff happen to me? Etc. And if I'd still been in the mood I was in the day before, I would have been angry at the car. I would have been fuming at the rain and everything else. But I was guarding my mind that day, and I was like, I am not taking the bait this time. You are not going to ruin my day. And I am going to sit here and I'm going to give thanks while I am waiting on my husband. And I called for a tow truck, and I was thankful for what? Okay, I already have a mechanic's appointment for the AC, and now they can fix whatever else is wrong. I know where to tell the tow truck driver to take my car to the dealer. Otherwise, I've been like, well, where am I going to take it? I was on the highway, and I was about to hit this stretch where there wouldn't have been any place to pull off for a little while. And so I was thankful that I had a place to pull off. I was thankful that the rain let up for those first few moments when I pulled over and was trying to figure out what was going on. I was thankful that we had free towing with our insurance. And I was thankful that when I called the dealer to tell them I was going to be late, I'd broken down, they were really helpful and they actually cared about me, and that felt good. And I was thankful that my husband was free to come rescue me. And last but not least, I was really thankful there was a bathroom at the place where I pulled over because I had to wait a while. So, and I think the thing I was most thankful for was this didn't happen the day before when I had to meet the junk haulers at the house at a certain time. Because, I mean, this was several hours of delay getting the car towed in and everything. While I was sitting there, I called my sister, and she was supposed to meet me at the dealer, to pick me up. And so I told her what was going on. And she suggested that I just spend some time praising the Lord while I was waiting. Great idea. So I sat there and I made up praise songs to Jesus, and I sang super loud because I was in my car by myself and it's pouring down rain. And it was the best praise session I've had in a really long time. I had nothing else to do. And it just felt good to tell the enemy to flee. The Bible says in James 4:7, resist the devil and he will flee from you. And he fled. I was calm. I was cheery. I was not harassed by him. Once I told him, not falling for your bait, he left me alone. When we give thanks and praise instead of whining and complaining, we win. We feel better inside. The enemy will stop harassing us, at least for a while. And we begin to look at the positive instead of the negative. Okay, I felt terrible inside the day before. And if I'd been sitting there fuming that whole time, waiting for my husband and the tow truck driver, it would have just continued. Okay, that day derailed more than 2 hours of my day, but the rest of the day went better. And I looked at it through a totally different lens than I would have. So back to 1 Peter 5:8 that I quoted earlier. Be alert. I was not alert that day before, but I was the following day. Be sober-minded, meaning be in control of your thoughts and reactions. If you think about it, a drunk person is not in control of his thoughts and reactions, but a sober person is. Sober-minded is guarding and controlling our thoughts and reactions. Your enemy, the devil. Yes, the devil is our enemy. He really is. You got to know your enemy. Your enemy is not your husband. It's not your teenager. It's not your boss. It's Satan. He prowls around like a roaring lion. Prowls implied he is on the hunt. He is on the offense, and we are on the defense. He's a roaring lion. He's strong and powerful, and he's seeking really to intimidate us, right? When the lion roars, he's trying to intimidate you. He's looking for someone to devour. He is seeing who is weak, who is stressed, who is resentful, who's really vulnerable to attack right now. It's like those wildlife shows. If you've ever watched them, they'll film the predator going after the most vulnerable member of the pack. That's what we got to realize. When we're down, when we're stressed, when we're sick, when we're overwhelmed, that's when we have to be extra vigilant to recognize when the enemy is going after us, because we're the vulnerable one in the pack right then. But this is nothing to be afraid of, okay? There's no fear because God is bigger. God is more powerful than the enemy. And again, all we have to do is resist him and he will flee. I mean, we don't have to mount this big attack or punch him, No, we just have to say, I'm not going there, and he will flee. He will be scared off, and you'll feel different. You will feel it leave you if you just reject the negative thoughts that he's throwing at you. The best defense is always a good offense, and the good offense in this situation is praise and thanksgiving. So go and try it this week. Okay, if you and your husband are at odds with each other, stop and ask, is the enemy trying to divide us? Then team together to fight the real enemy. Mention it to your husband. Hey, we're not the enemy. Let's fight together. Satan's trying to divide us. Let's choose to be thankful and praise the Lord together. I often play praise music when things are getting heated and going in a bad direction at my house. And if I'm not ready to praise myself, I'm not there yet. I'm going to go play some praise music. But it's amazing how that can change the atmosphere in my home, in my car, because the enemy will flee in the presence of praise and worship. Remember too that our weapons are not of this world. We have better weapons. We think it's our words and we start spewing at people. No. Okay, we have prayer. That is the spiritual weapons. We can ask God's army to come against the enemy. Spoiler alert, God always wins. So I pray that this has unveiled your eyes to what's really going on underneath the surface. And next time you have a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day, remember this lesson and try out the new weapons. Okay, prayer, praise, worship. And each day, catch your thoughts when they start going down that negative thought train track and switch tracks, because they will just keep on barreling down that negative direction until you purposefully move them over to the positive track. Okay, God tells us to take our thoughts captive. Hey, and if you have a great, horrible day story, I'd love to hear about it. You can put it down in the comments. Hope this helps. Please like, share, let me know what questions you have about marriage or your relationship with God that you'd like me to answer. The more that you comment and like, the more other people will be able to see this video. So that would help me out if you found this helpful. You can also email me anytime at Anne, A-N-N-E, at synergiamm.com, synergiamm.com, MM for marriage mentoring. You can also join our Facebook page at Synergia Marriage Mentoring, and I'd love to get more conversations going there as well. Remember, you are loved. You are enough, and God is on your side. Go in peace.